morning of August 1st, 1966, the sun rose over Austin, Texas, as students hurried across the campus of the University of Texas. It was a day like any other, sticky with summer heat, the kind where cicadas buzzed loudly in the trees. No one knew that within hours, the world would remember this date forever. A man with a rifle was climbing to the top of the university's clock tower, and once he reached the observation deck, history would change. Charles Whitman was not just another face in the crowd. Born in Lake Worth, Florida, in 1941, he had been raised in a strict household under a domineering father. His father, C.A. Whitman, was known for his violent temper and obsession with control. The home was a place of discipline, where failure was punished and achievement was demanded. Charles grew up excelling in academics and scouts, even becoming the youngest Eagle Scout in history at the time. But behind his smile, the pressure weighed heavily. By the time Charles was in college, people described him as intelligent, polite, and ambitious. He studied architectural engineering at the University of Texas and served in the Marines. To those around him, he seemed like someone destined for success. But beneath the surface, Charles was crumbling. He suffered from mood swings, violent impulses, and a gnawing darkness he couldn't explain. He began to notice something was wrong with his mind. He wrote in his journals about sudden fits of anger, headaches that split his skull, and intrusive thoughts of violence. He sought medical help, confessing to a university psychiatrist that he felt something inside him was slipping. He told the doctor about his fantasies of shooting people from a tower, but the warning went unheeded. He was sent home with nothing more than a follow-up appointment that never came. Charles also lived with personal turmoil. His marriage to his wife, Kathy, was both loving and tense. Kathy was a kind-hearted schoolteacher, adored by friends and family. Charles adored her too, but his dark moods sometimes frightened her. In moments of lucidity, he knew he was losing control of himself. He wrote long letters trying to explain his feelings, calling himself a man overcome by irrational thoughts. He suspected that something was physically wrong with his brain. On the last night of July 1966, Charles sat in his modest Austin home, typing a final letter. He wrote calmly with precision. He described how he could no longer fight the demons inside him. He wrote that he planned to kill his mother and his wife, not out of hatred, but because he wanted to spare them the shame of what he was about to do. He even requested an autopsy after his death, hoping doctors might find a tumor or some explanation for his violent urges. That night, Charles carried out the first stage of his plan. He drove to his mother's apartment, where she lived alone after separating from his father. He killed her quietly, leaving a note beside her body that said he loved her but had to relieve her suffering. Then he returned home, where Kathy was asleep in bed. With chilling efficiency, he stabbed her in the chest as she slept, killing her instantly on her nightstand. He left another note explaining that he loved her too much to let her live through the humiliation of his coming actions. In the morning, Charles packed his car like a soldier preparing for battle. He carried rifles, shotguns, pistols, ammunition, water, food, and even a radio. He also brought knives and ropes. Each item was laid out with military precision, as if he were preparing for a war he had no intention of surviving. Then he drove to the University of Texas campus, parking near the main building. The campus clock tower stood tall, a 27-story building that overlooked the entire university. It was a landmark in Austin, a symbol of pride, but on this day, it would become a fortress of death. Charles wheeled a footlocker full of weapons into the building, dressed neatly in overalls that made him look like a repairman. With a fake smile, he convinced a receptionist he was delivering equipment. No one questioned him. He took the elevator to the 27th floor, pushing his heavy load of weapons. Then he hauled everything up a final flight of stairs to the observation deck. Along the way, he encountered two receptionists. He pulled out his rifle and shot them both, leaving their bodies in the stairwell. Then he barricaded the door with a heavy desk, locking himself into the top of the tower. He was now in position. At 11:48 a.m., the first shot cracked across the campus. A young woman walking below fell instantly to the ground. Then another shot rang out, and another. At first, students thought it was construction noise, but within seconds, screams filled the air. Panic erupted as people realized they were being shot at from above. Charles positioned himself around the observation deck, using the corners as cover. He had an unobstructed view of the entire university grounds. Each movement below became a target. Students running for cover were cut down by bullets that came from nowhere. People lying still on the hot pavement prayed he would overlook them, but Charles picked off anyone who moved. Across Guadalupe Street, cars screeched to a halt. Pedestrians ducked behind walls and newspaper stands. Some froze, too terrified to move. The sound of gunfire echoed across the city. Radios buzzed with reports of a madman in the tower. Police officers scrambled toward the university, but every time they approached, Charles opened fire, pinning them down. The carnage grew worse when Charles spotted a young pregnant woman, Claire Wilson, walking with her boyfriend, Tom. He shot Claire in the stomach, killing her unborn child instantly. When Tom tried to help her, Charles killed him with a single shot to the head. Claire lay bleeding on the hot pavement, unable to move. For over an hour, she lay in the sun, surrounded by death. Other students tried to rescue the wounded. A young man named John Artley Fox risked his life, crawling on his stomach to reach Claire. Bullets whizzed past his head, but he managed to drag her to safety. Others braved the gunfire, too, forming rescue lines to pull the injured into nearby buildings. Charles kept firing. He switched between rifles, never wasting a shot. People hiding behind trees or cars were struck down. A father shielding his teenage son was killed instantly. The campus became a war zone. At one point, Charles even shot at people blocks away, his bullets reaching out across the city. He hit cyclists, delivery drivers, and even a police officer hiding behind cover. The chaos lasted for over 90 minutes. Police officers were helpless on the ground. They had no clear line of fire, no way to stop him. Some students and civilians grabbed their own rifles and began shooting back, providing cover for those below. This was Texas in the 1960s, where hunting rifles were common, and ordinary citizens now fought back against the sniper in the tower. Inside the building, two brave men, Austin Police Officer Houston McCoy and Patrolman Ramiro Martinez, made their way up the tower. They climbed the same stairs Charles had taken, stepping over bodies in the stairwell. Their hearts pounded as they approached the barricaded door to the observation deck. They knew one wrong move would mean death. At 1:24 p.m., the officers reached the deck. Martinez kicked over the barricade, and the two men stormed out into the blinding Texas sun. They moved cautiously, rifles raised. The deck was silent, except for the distant sounds of sirens and crime below. Then they spotted him. Charles Whitman crouched in the corner, rifle ready, waiting. Martinez opened fire, his pistol shots echoing across the stone deck. McCoy raised his shotgun and fired two blasts at close range, striking Whitman in the chest and face. The sniper fell instantly. It was over. The nightmare that had paralyzed the city ended with the sound of a shotgun. In total, Charles Whitman had killed 16 people and wounded over 30 others in just 96 minutes. It was the deadliest mass shooting in American history at the time. The University of Texas campus looked like a battlefield, littered with shell casings, blood, and broken lives. In the days that followed, investigators searched for answers. Why had this intelligent, promising young man turned into a monster? Autopsies revealed something shocking. A tumor, the size of a pecan, was lodged in Whitman's brain. Some doctors believed it pressed against his amygdala, the part of the brain that controls fear and aggression. Could this explain his sudden descent into violence? Or was it simply an excuse? The debate continues to this day. For the families of the victims, the answers didn't matter. Their loved ones were gone. The sunny August morning had turned into a nightmare that would haunt them forever. The university community was shattered. Students were afraid to walk across campus, haunted by memories of bodies lying in the grass. The Texas Tower shooting marked the beginning of a dark new chapter in American history. It was one of the first mass shootings in the United States, a crime that would inspire countless copycats in the decades to come. For many, it was a day innocence was lost. The tower itself became a symbol of grief, of trauma, and of a question that has never been fully answered. Why? Even now, Nearly 60 years later, the story of Charles Whitman chills the heart. He was not a stereotypical monster. He was a neighbor, a husband, a student, someone who looked like anyone else. And yet, within him, there was a darkness that exploded in a way no one could predict it. On the University of Texas campus today, the tower still stands. Students walk past it on their way to class, often unaware of the blood that once stained the ground beneath it. But for those who know the story, the tower is more than just a building. It is a reminder of the fragility of life, of the hidden battles within the human mind, and of a day when one man turned an ordinary campus into a killing ground. Charles Whitman's story is not just about violence. It is about the questions that linger. How much of what we do is controlled by our choices, and how much is driven by the hidden workings of our brains? If Whitman's tumor influenced his actions, was he in control, or was he a victim of his biology, doomed to carry out a massacre he could not resist? The tragedy of August 1st, 1966, forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that sometimes evil doesn't wear a mask. Sometimes it looks like the person sitting next to you in class, the man buying groceries, the neighbor mowing his lawn, and sometimes it waits, hidden in silence, until the day it decides to show itself. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends so they can enjoy it too.